how function is called, uh, how function is called recursively, what the different things happened when you call a function and when you return from the function. So that is about procedure activation. So unit number 2 is all about data representation and procedure activation. So chapter 4 and 5 from Ravi Sethi and chapter 3 from second textbook, which is mentioned in our syllabus. Soft copy is available. I have already shared soft copy of T2 on our Moodle class. In this unit, we are going to see what is the role of types. When we define, whenever we study any new programming language, we study what are the built-in data types supported by that language. For example, in Java, we have seen Java supports 8 built-in data types or primitive data types. So what is the role of data types? What are basic data types? Then what are assignments and local states of a variable? Environmental model of evaluation. Then we'll see different homogeneous data types like arrays, heterogeneous data type like record, union, and variant. Then non-linear data types like sets, pointers, toString. After that, we'll see what are the different type errors, type checking and errors. Then how to deal with mutable data. And here onwards, the second part, that is introduction to procedures. Procedures are like functions. Different parameter passing methods. We have seen parameter passing methods in Java. Here we have to study parameter passing methods in general. Then scope rules. What is meaning of scope? Local scope, global scope, static scope, dynamic scope. Then what is nested scope in source text? What are activation records? And we'll see lexical scope in C and Pascal. So this is the big unit from our syllabus. We have allocated 10 lectures for unit number 2. How do you find unit 1? The speed for unit number 1, was it very fast, slow, or adequate?
It was good, ma'am.
Okay. We'll maintain the same thing for unit 2 also. Basically, it is nothing but imperative programming. We are continuing imperative programming paradigm with how data is stored in the machine and how it is used for procedures or functions. So the word imperative it came from Latin word imperate. Imperate means command or control. It is the oldest programming paradigm. The program based on this paradigm is made up of clearly defined sequence of instructions or actions. So program executes sequentially. Sequence is important. How program execute is important in imperative programming. Therefore, the source code for imperative language is series of commands. Source code is your program, which is a series of commands or instructions, which specify what the computer has to do when in order to achieve desired result. You want something, for example, you want sorted array, and for that, what you are going to do, the steps or instruction, sequence of instruction is your program. These are various imperative programming languages, well-known or best-known imperative languages. Fortran was the oldest language. It is a short form for formula translation. Your parents, if they have studied computers, they might be familiar with Fortran language. You might have, we have seen Java in first year. We have Pascal is not in our syllabus, but we are going to learn some basic concepts of Pascal, as it is a structured language, and there are some unique features that Pascal has and C didn't have. That's why in this book or on our slides also you may find some examples from Pascal. Algol, C, C sharp, C++, assembly language, basic language, COBOL, Python, Ruby. So now Python, Ruby also follows imperative programming paradigm. Then why imperative is selected for this unit? The answer is the emphasis in imperative language is on data structure with the assignable components. That is the component that can hold individual values. So when you assign, say x is equal to whatever, so that particular expression will be result into a value, and that value you are going to assign to the left hand side of your assignment operator. And imperative languages focus on data. The size and layout of data structure tend to be fixed at compile time. So if you define variable integer int a, that means you are allocating 2 bytes for variable a. So the size is fixed. Memory allocation for variable a is fixed at compile time. So size and layout of data structure mainly or tend to fixed at compile time in imperative language before program is run. In Java, we use new keyword. If we are using a class variable or objects, then we use, for example, complex C1 is equal to new complex. Here we allocate memory at runtime. So the type or size of variable is decided at runtime when program executes. But this is not the case with C or C++. When we define a variable, we know the compiler know the size of variable and memory is allocated at compile time. That it is tend to fixed. It is not always fixed because C and C++ also support dynamic programming. Storage in imperative language must typically be allocated and deallocated explicitly. Means, for example, if you want to go for dynamic memory allocation, if you want to allocate memory dynamically, means at runtime, then you have to allocate and deallocate memory explicitly. In C, if you have studied this, I didn't know, there are functions like malloc and alloc, allocate memory, and there is function like pre, you can pre memory. So there, when you use malloc or alloc, it will allocate memory at runtime. And when you use pre, it will pre memory at runtime. And in C language, we have new keyword and delete keyword. Means new keyword will allocate a memory and delete keyword will remove memory. So these are the properties of imperative language. Imperative language is based on data structures, which has the assignable components, and size and layout of data structure is known at compile time, and storage is allocated and deallocated explicitly. Then what is the role of type? How you can look at the type? So there are two here terms, data object and data representation objects. So data object and data representation object is an application have corresponding representation in a program. For example, this is the application and this is a program. Program means your source code. What is the value? For example, data is Jan 31st and we stored 31st. Then data is May 6. Your value it is stored for May 6 is 126. Can anyone explain me how it is 126 for May 6? So here we assume that each month has 30 days. So 4 into 30 is 120. That is May is 5th month, right? So before that we have 4 months. So 4 into 3, that is 120, and this is 6th day. So 120 plus 6, that's why it is 126. It is just, for example, program is counting number of days. So Jan 30 means 31st, then May 6 may be 126. If we take a specific day, so that should have some integer value. And if you want to check tomorrow, suppose current day is say 27th of January. So current day is 27th. So what is the day tomorrow? So that will be 27 plus 1, that is 28. So tomorrow is a function and actually the value should be incremented by 1. If we see yesterday, that should be n minus 1. So for every application, you should have some computations in your program, and these computations are based on data. And how you represent data in your program. For example, here n is nothing but a variable. This n plus 1 is nothing but an operation, and this is actual data. So values and data types. So data types can be basic type or constructed type and their values. Here basic data types are they are available in almost all programming languages and provided programming language itself. These are called primitive data types or built-in data types. For example, integer, character, real, and boolean. These are basic data types. And in addition to these basic data types, language also supports some constructed or structured data types that are built up to a simple types, which can be a sequence of locations in a machine, like arrays, structures, class, etc. This PPT is visible. I just changed the tab. What we have seen, any program is a set of instructions that are applied to a certain data in a certain sequence. So when you talk about a program, it is not just set of instructions, but these set of instructions are applied on a data in a certain sequence. So sequence is important, data is important, and everything is nothing but a set of instruction. And together we call a program. We are talking about imperative paradigm. So this data objects can be actual or virtual. Means we are allocating memory or memory is allocated by default. So data objects can be program defined or system defined. Program defined means in our program we define variables, and system defined means for in some intermediate results. System also allocates memory for temporary variables which are known as system defined data types. So let's see what are the attributes, data values, and type of data object. So when you say variable A, so for variable A, how much memory should be allocated is depending upon type of a variable. If you define int A, 2 bytes will be allocated. If you define float A, 4 bytes gets allocated. So that memory location, actual memory location is known as data object. And A is a variable. A is name given to this memory location. So what is a memory location? In our machine, we have RAM. And when program executes, the program is stored on a RAM. And memory is allocated for source program as well as data or variables in that program at the runtime. So for every variable, you have to allocate the memory as per the data types. So that memory location, the name given to memory location is known as variable. So we know what is A, what is the value of A at this point. We are dealing with variable A, but we didn't know the memory which is allocated at the backend. It is the abstraction name for memory. So for particular variable, memory gets allocated, and that memory is nothing but data object. Now, when we assign a value to a variable, suppose A is equal to 10 or A is equal to 11. So that value is nothing but a data value. So we have variable, we have data object and its value. And when we say A is equal to 10, the value is stored in that particular memory location. So we can say that variable A is bounded to this memory location. Integer A is equal to 10. We just write integer A is equal to 10 in our source program. But in memory, 2 bytes are allocated to this variable integer A, and binary value of 10 is stored in this memory location. This is data value. Instead of showing you binary value, I'll just show you a decimal value. You assume that these are 2 bytes. 10 is a value, and say this is a memory location or address of memory location in hexadecimal form. So this variable A is bounded to memory location. It is bounded to a value. It is also bounded to a data type. This is called binding. binding of a variable with its value, with its memory location, and with its data type. And you can say that variable A is a bounded variable. So what is a binding? Binding is nothing but association between an attribute, that is property, and an entity or operation of a symbol. For example, variable name is bounded here, name A is a name or variable name. It is bounded to its data type, then its value, then its memory location. If this is the name of a method or function, suppose add is a method. So what is the return type, number of parameters, type of each parameter, its return type. So the variable is bounded with different properties. So there can be one to many, like name is bounded with a variable A is bounded with data type, value, and memory location, or function name is bounded with number of parameters, type of each parameter, return type. That is one to many, or many to one means we can have different entities bounded to same property. For example, type. Type is bounded with for variable name, return type, function name, function properties, or type of each function, etc. So there can be different types of bindings, one to many or many to one. Then binding time, the time at which binding takes place is called binding time. It's very important. So let's say you are a designer or a programmer who is going to design a new language. So you will decide which variables or which characters are used for which functions. For example, in C language, we use assignment operator equal to for assignment. In Pascal, colon equal to is used for assignment. In language, in C, C++, Java, asterisk is used for multiplication and pointers. But in some languages, or sorry, in Pascal, we use two asterisks for raise to or for operator. So the variable or which character you're going to use for which function. For example, division operator, slash is used for division, or mod is used for modulo operator. So operator and its operation. You will bind this operator with the operation at language design time. Implementation time binding. Implementation is how many bytes should be allocated for each type. For example, in C language, we allocate 2 bytes for integer. And in Java, we allocate 4 bytes for integer. So implementation time, how many bytes or memory should be allocated for that particular variable, or how that variable should be stored in memory. For example, in floating point, in hardware subjects, you are going to learn there are different ways to store floating point number in memory, like single precision system, double precision system. You might have heard or you are going to learn it. I don't know. But there are IEEE standards for floating point representation in memory, or you can save it in a decimal format like 14.23, or in exponent mantissa format. So which format is supported by your system hardware, and how that variable or the particular floating point number should be stored. For character data type, whether it is bound with ASCII data set or ASCII character set or Unicode character set. Are you going to allocate 1 byte like in C, C++, or 2 bytes like in Java for character data type? These type of decisions are taken at implementation time. These are implementation time binding. Then compile time, in compile time here, like when you define a variable is assigned its type, or binding of a variable with its type, binding of a function name with its uh, arguments and types or return type. All these type of bindings are called compile time binding. Linking time. Linking time is now your program is error free, and you have imported some library functions. Like in C language, you include hash include stdio.h, or in Java, you import java.lang package or java.util package for scanner class. So these functions are not defined in your code. These are already compiled and you means ready to use functions available in library. So these functions, so suppose I'm using SC, scanner SC is equal to new scanner system.in. So that variable is attached with my code at linking time. That is linking time binding. What is loading time? Your program is linked, it is compiled, it is successfully compiled, there are no compilation error, and now you want to execute it on a machine. So program must be loaded into main memory for its execution, and it should get the proper addresses. So that is loading time. Binding of a program with a machine with a memory is called loading time. So some binding starts from language design time to load time. Now there are again two character things, that is static time binding and dynamic time binding. As the name says static, that means early binding, which is known as compile time binding. So all these bindings 1, 2, 3, which are on compile time or before compile time, is called static binding. These are fixed bindings. These bindings are not going to change whether you execute a program on any machine, because at these bindings or this association happens at compile time. Some bindings are called dynamic bindings or late bindings. As the name says, late means after compilation at the time of execution. So linking binding, loading binding, and execution time binding. When user enters a value, so you ask user enter number of students. I entered 30. So that 30 with a variable, that binding of a variable and its value, which happens at runtime, is called runtime binding or dynamic binding or late binding. So these are the examples of different binding times. As I told you, language design time binding, bind operators involved to the operation. Then language implementation binding, bind float point type to its representation, whether it is single precision, double precision, then decimal point notation or mantissa and exponent type notation. Compile time binding, bind a variable to the type in C or Java. You have to define a variable before its use in C or Java. In Python, you can directly assign a value and type is decided at runtime. But in C or Java, you have to define a variable before its use. So type of a variable and the variable. That binding is compile time binding. Link time binding, binding with library functions. Load time binding, when you load a program into main memory, like static variables, or when your actual program is ready for execution. Runtime binding, bind a non-static local variable to the memory save, or you accept value from a variable at runtime, that is runtime binding. Variable declaration, you can there can be explicit declaration and implicit declaration. Like in C++, Java, we have to explicitly declare variables. When we say int a, char c, float b, that is explicit declaration. We are saying that a is of type integer, b is of type float, c is of type character. These are known as explicit declaration. So an explicit declaration in a program statement used for declaring the type of variable. And what is implicit declaration? Like in Python, we didn't declare any variable. We just assign the value, roll number 13. So it will take roll number as integer, or name is equal to Chaya. So we can say that name is of type string. So by default, whenever we assign a value, language automatically assign type to that variable. That is called implicit declaration. Implicit is default mechanism for specifying types of a variable. So whenever it first appeared in a variable, the variable first appeared with its value, the type is decided by the machine itself or the compiler. Compiler will decide the type. Before Python, there are many languages who have used implicit declaration, like in Perl. Perl is a language. In this, variables for type scalar, array, and hash begin with dollar. If variables start with a dollar, if I say dollar $a is equal to whatever, then it is considered as scalar type. Scalar means individual type variable. Then array variable starts with at the rate, and hash variable starts with percent. So there is one character preceding with the variable, and it will decide the type of variable. In Fortran language, variable name, if variable name begin with I to n characters, it is assumed to be of type integer. In ML language, use sophisticated type inference mechanism. ML and Lisp, other functional programming languages, or Python, they use different mechanisms for deciding type of a variable. Now, what is the advantage of, which is advantageous, explicit declaration or implicit declaration? You understood what is explicit declaration? Like in C, C++, Java, we define the type of variable before its use. Variable must be defined. User has to declare the variable. But in case of Python, now you are doing your assignments with the Python, you are familiar with the Python variables. We can assign the value and type is decided by the system. So which one is good, implicit or explicit, and why? Can you discuss? Or can you tell me the advantage of explicit declaration over implicit? You understood implicit and explicit declaration of a variable?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So which one you find easier, Python variables or Java variables? See, every coin has two sides. Explicit has some advantages, some limitations. Similarly, implicit declaration also has some advantages and limitations. So we have to discuss. Suppose you are going to design your own language. Which type of variable declaration you will follow? Implicit, explicit, or combined one? What is the advantage of explicit declaration, where we have to declare variable before its use? What can be the advantage?
Typecasting.
Typecasting. Rajita, you said typecasting?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what can be the disadvantage of explicit declaration? As a user, if I define variable integer a and at some program point, I have to use variable a with another data type. I'm not, means it will show me an error. Variable is already declared. I'm not able to redeclare that variable in the same scope. Redeclaration is not allowed. Or I have to remember that I have declared variable a is of type integer. Otherwise, it will show type mismatch error, right? So this is the disadvantage. Advantage is it is already declared by a programmer, so it is easy for a compiler to match data types and it will reduce type mismatch errors. And what is the advantage of implicit declaration? Implicit declaration, where a user is not going to define data type, it is decided by the system. What is the advantage of implicit declaration? Or what is the disadvantage of implicit declaration?
Ma'am, in Python, when we accept inputs from user, it is in the form of string. So even numbers are considered as string. So if we want to convert them, then we have to typecast.
Yeah. So the advantage of implicit declaration is writability and convenience. So a user should not be worried about whether this variable is previously declared as what and how. Whenever you assign the value, it takes the data type automatically. So it is writability and convenience for a user point of view, as a programmer point of view. Disadvantage is reliability, because if I can assign value, so at one program type variable x is of type integer, at another program point x is of float, then x can be declared as list. So it may through your program will turn out into some errors because of that variable. You assume that it is of type list, and then somebody has assigned it to a string and it has converted to the string. So that will cause some errors. So it will affect the reliability of your code. implicit declaration. So this advantage is and disadvantage is for implicit declaration, and the just reverse of this is explicit declaration. Explicit declaration is reliable, advantage is reliable, disadvantage is writability and convenience for a user. Storage binding and lifetime. So when we assign a value to a variable and when we declare a variable, so memory is allocated for the variable, so that is called storage. So the point till that variable is binded with this memory location is known as lifetime of a variable. When we create a variable, memory is allocated to it and it is bounded to that particular storage location, and the time till which the variable is bounded to that particular storage location is known as lifetime of a variable. Okay. Storage binding, allocation, getting a cell from some pool of available cells. So memory is nothing but a pool of available cells. Cells are memory locations. And when you allocate a memory to a variable, it will take a particular cell depending upon number of bytes for a particular variable from that pool or array of memory locations. And when you deallocate the memory, so you are releasing, previously you have allocated some memory, then when you deallocate it, it will release that memory, means put those cells back into the pool. Pool is available memory locations. So allocation will allocate those cells to the variable. Deallocation is free those cells and which are available for different memory allocations. So by definition, lifetime of a variable is time during which it is bounded to a particular memory location. So what is a lifetime? During which it is bounded to a particular memory location. So depending upon the lifetime of variable, there are 4 categories of variables: static variable, stack dynamic, explicit heap dynamic, and implicit heap dynamic. Static is compile time variable. When you allocate a memory, it is bounded throughout the memory location. Stack dynamic, it is the when you call a method procedure, it is dynamic basically, it is at runtime, but it uses stack memory. There are 3 types of memory available in your system, means RAM is divided into 3 types of memory: static memory, stack memory, and heap memory. Out of this, static is a compile type, and stack memory and heap memory is of dynamic type or at runtime. And stack and heap, let me show you that diagram. I think, okay, diagram is not here. Computer memory is divided into 3 types: static, stack, and heap. And static memory and stack memory, stack memory and heap memory are growing towards each other. And static memory is allocated by a compiler when program executes, when function calls another function and variables. So for function variables and function calls, stack memory is allocated starting from this location here onwards. And heap memory is allocated at runtime by new operator. Programmer explicitly allocates memory using malloc, alloc, or new operator. This memory is allocated from this point. So this is dynamic memory and this is static memory. In this static memory, program, that is your code and compile time variables are stored. Compile time variables, static variables, these are stored here in static memory. And stack and heap, they will grow towards each other. It's a dynamic memory. Again, in heap, we have explicit heap and implicit heap. Explicit heap means programmer explicitly allocates or assigns alloc, malloc, size of int, means it will specify that size of int means 2 bytes to get allocated explicitly. Implicitly, depending upon the requirement, system automatically allocates this memory, which is called implicit allocation or heap dynamic. So we have seen what is storage binding and lifetime, and different types of lifetimes depending upon the categories of variable depending upon lifetime: static variable, stack dynamic, explicit heap dynamic, and implicit heap dynamic. Static variables, we have studied static variables in Java. You might have studied static variables in C language. So static variables are bound to a memory cell before execution begins and remains bound to the same memory location throughout the execution. So if you have seen the program counter, when you call the method, normally variable is passed to that method, and when you return from the method or function, memory allocated for the variables will be deallocated automatically when you come out. But for static variable, once memory is allocated, it will remain allocated to that particular memory even you come out of the execution. So static variables are bound to the memory cell before execution starts and remain bound to the same memory cell throughout execution. Note that Fortran language, Fortran 77, all variables are of type static. Fortran is pure static language. Variables cannot be defined dynamically. C language also supports static variables. There are static keyword is used to define static variables. Even in Java, C++, we can use static keywords to define static variables. What is the advantage of static variable? Efficiency, direct addressing. Direct addressing means there is no indirect addressing. Memory is directly allocated and it is known at compile time. This variable is stored at that particular location. And history sensitive subprogram support. So even after execution of a program, variable can hold its value. Disadvantage is lack of flexibility and no recursion, as it is not supporting dynamic memory allocation, no stack support. So you cannot call a method from a method. So recursion is not possible in the language like Fortran. It is possible in C because C supports stack allocation. And lack of flexibility. It is very rigid. Memory is allocated at compile time, that's it. There is no flexibility that if your program needs extra memory location at runtime, it is not possible to write such dynamic programs. Stack
So,
dynamic,
ma'am,
yes?
isn't that memory freed after the execution?
No. Once it is bounded till you exit from the code, static memory cannot be freed.
Okay.
Only dynamic memory can be freed. In case of stack allocation, it is freed by compiler when you return from a function. And in heap allocation, user has to free that memory. But for whenever you use static keyword, it is wastage of memory. If you are not going to use that variable throughout your program, once memory is allocated, it will remain with that variable throughout the program execution. Static memory cannot be freed. Static variables are bound to memory cells before execution begins and remain bound to the same memory cell throughout the execution. Not only for that method, but throughout the program execution.
Okay.
Stack dynamic variables. Stack dynamic variables, storage bindings are created for a variable when their declaration statements are elaborated. If scalar, all attributes except address are statically bound. Local variables in Pascal, C, Java, these are stack dynamic variables. It allows recursion, it conserves storage. Disadvantage is overhead of allocation and deallocation. Subprograms cannot be history sensitive, insufficient references, that is indirect addressing. This direct and indirect addressing, these are hardware terms. Means when the compiler tries to find value of a variable, if it is not loaded at that particular memory location, there is a pointer that for this variable, for this table. That means at that particular location, you may not find the actual address. You can find the pointer to a address. So that is indirect addressing. Local variables, when you create a function, we declare local variables into, suppose function is add, you define variable c is equal to a plus b, and a and b you're passing parameters to method add. So a, b, c becomes local variables to method add, and the memory is allocated for these local variables on a stack. So that is stack dynamic variable or binding. It allows recursion, it conserves storage, because when you return from the method, the variables, the memory is allocated for these variables is written or freed or deallocated. So we are talking about variables, constants, literals, and data types. So what is a variable? Name given to a memory location. What is a constant? The constants that we use in our program. For example, you define max is equal to 100, or you define pi is equal to 3.14. So that value in your program, constant value, numerical value, is called constant. Or the variable which will hold the value throughout the program execution, same value. So max variable, which is assigned, which you have assigned 100. So whenever you use max, max is replaced by 100. Throughout the program execution, the value of max is 100. Or pi, you define float pi is equal to 3.14. So in C language, we use hash define to define constant. In C++, you use int constant keyword and const int max equal to 100. So const keyword is used in C++. Java uses final keyword to define constants. The value of constants will not change throughout program execution. You can create constants of any type. And what is literal? Literal is numerical means character constants. For example, in your program, you might have written answer is equal to in single quotes y, yes, or capital S. So that y in single quotes is your character constant. Or when you say max is equal to 100, that 100, or pi is equal to 3.14. So pi is a variable which is constant. When you create a constant, so pi is constant, but 3.14 is literal, which are known as character constants. And note that memory should be allocated to variables, constants, and literals. Persistent data type, files are persistent data types. Means when we create a file, we add a data, we close a file. And when you open the file again, you can find the data is still loaded into the file. Because like any other variable, when you create a variable, assign a value, and use that function, memory is deallocated, value will be vanished. Once you come out of the program and you type A on a prompt, you will get an error, undefined variable A, because now there is no scope for the variable. Value is not there in the variable. But when you create a file, write data into a file and come out of that file, and again in another program, if you open the file again, the value is still there. So it is called persistent data type. All other data types like integer, character, float, arrays, structure, class, these are non-persistent data types. Only one persistent data type is files. So variable covers nature of the name and special words in a programming language, attributes of variables, concept of binding and binding types. So in this here we have to deal with all these things. It investigates, mainly variables are used for type checking. It will check whether it is strong typing or weak typing, and type compatibility rules. And at the end, we are going to discuss what are the named constraints and variable initialization techniques. C is case sensitive language, Java is case sensitive language, Python is also case sensitive language. And we have seen there are some languages which are case insensitive. Have you studied HTML language or basic language? These are
Yes.
case insensitive language. You can write in case of HTML title as small case or capital case or mixed case. It will work fine. So what should be there? Okay, language should be case sensitive or not? What is the advantage and disadvantage of case sensitivity? These two names, if they are same, that means language is case insensitive. If these two names are different, that means language is case sensitive. You can write like in Java, we have seen complex when C is capital, when C is small. You can use two different names, capital C for class name, small c for function name, like this. In the first language, before C also, the first language has only upper cases. Even assembly language is case insensitive. You are going to learn 885, 886 assembly language programs. So that is case insensitive. It can use only uppercase or any case characters. Case sensitivity was introduced by probably by Unix and then C language. Before the C, I think all the languages were case insensitive. What is the disadvantage of case insensitivity? This disadvantage is of case insensitivity, poor readability, because I didn't know whether this is function name or class name, because I can use many randomly, uppercase, lowercase, or any case character. So readability is poor. Since names that look alike to human are different. So I think complex can be my class name, method name, variable name, or it can be a file name. So it looks same, but it is different. Like in Java also, Java support mixed case. Uh, for example, to string or exception, index, out of bound. Every alternate word is a first character of alternate word is uppercase. These are the disadvantages of case sensitivity. So when your language is case sensitive, that means you are using different cases for recognizing different data versions. You can use different names. Spelling is same, but if you change the case, you can use that name. So it provides advantages, larger namespace. Same names you can use for various purposes like function, class, variable, etc. Ability to use case to signify classes of a variables. For example, you can make constants in uppercase. C, C++, Java, Modulo names are case sensitive, but the names for many other languages are not. Examples we have seen HTML, then assembly language, basic language, these are case insensitive language. Some languages have special words or keywords. Java, we cannot create a variable of type main, or I cannot say int main or int while or int if. My variable name should be different from keywords or reserved words. Like C, C++, Java has the concept of keywords. Keywords is a word that is special only in certain context. So in this case, what is the disadvantage? Poor readability, and advantage is flexibility. Now this is disadvantage of having no keywords or no reserved words. If there are no reserved words in a language, then it is very difficult to read that program whether this is reserved word or whether it is a variable. And advantage is flexibility. You can use any name as a variable name. A reserved word is a special word that cannot be used as a user-defined name. So variable is abstraction of memory cell. It is name given to a memory. Variable can be characterized as 6 tuple attribute. It has name, address, value, type, lifetime, and scope. More on variable we will discuss in the next lecture. I just want to give an example of language didn't have special words and how it affects readability. statement is if else equal to then equal to else. Now here you didn't know whether else is reserved word else or it is a variable name. So it will create a confusion for a user. Here this is A, suppose this is B, this is B and A. If you read it like if A is equal to B, then B equal to A. So this is more readable because here if and then these are the keywords and these are the variables. But here we can use variables as a reservoir. So it will create a problem for readability. Some languages didn't have any reservoir. You can use reservoirs and keywords for your variables to define a variable name or function name. In next lecture, we'll continue with the features or attributes of a variable.